There is no one else on the planet quite like you. You are completely unique. You are your own set of attributes that has never been repeated, never happened in the past, will never happen again in the future. You were born at a specific time, in a specific generation, in a specific place, under a specific family, in specific circumstances. And these circumstances and the place that you were born and how you grew up shaped you and your person and your personality. And along the way, I don't know what your come up was, but perhaps you were told that you're no good. Maybe you were pushed aside. Maybe you were spoken over a lot. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe you were the all-star on the football team. Maybe you were the popular kid in school. Maybe it all worked out for you. But I'm here to speak to both of you. The kid who was sort of an outcast, which is me speaking to myself, to be honest, because that's exactly who I was. And also the kid who has uncovered some of his talents, or maybe things are just working out for him. Maybe he's not even emphasizing his talents and he's just popular, you know? But it goes both ways. For those at the top and those at the bottom, you are equally unique. You have strengths. There's one thing in this world that I don't think anybody's ever said this, but it seems to be going without saying. I've never heard anyone say this, but I believe everyone has talent. And I don't know, it just the stigma or how people talk about talent, they make it sound very exclusive, like some people have talent and some people don't. And, you know, there are people with extraordinary talent. There are people who were put exactly where they were supposed to be at the right time, and it flourished for them like a prodigy. Someone who was born to play the piano, and his father just so happened to have a piano laying around and had the money for a tutor. You know, sometimes circumstances align perfectly for someone's talent to just explode tremendously. But that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have the exact right circumstances and aren't born at the exact right time to be put in the perfect place to uncover their strengths and what they were born to do. Or just what they're great at doing. Because everybody's great at doing something. Because first of all, the quote that has helped me a lot, and I've heard this a lot growing up, is, practice always beats talent, or work always beats talent. And it's true. Even if you're a prodigy, imagine the piano player who is just masterful. If he played once a year just at parties to show off and never played ever besides that, the person who might not be the most talented at playing piano, who is relentlessly, just as an example, doing it for 6-7 hours a day for years on end, that's he's going to catch up. He's going to catch up quite quick. So if you uncover who you are, and there's a lot of ways to do that, there's just as many problems to find in uncovering who you are as there is solutions. And what I mean by that is that it's not always easy, because I was in the dark for a long time about what my strengths were. Because, I mean, think of the school system. The school system has all these different topics that you're thrown into. I was not so great at any of them. Not a single one. I was extraordinary at basic math, but as soon as math turned into algebra, as soon as it turned into geometry, my talent, which, you know, if I would have stuck with it and I wouldn't have convinced myself that my attention span was just rotten, I probably could have went a lot further with math. But I peaked at basic math. I am a calculator when it comes to small multiplication equations and sum division and addition and subtraction. And just, I have a good memory for certain numbers, and like I'm really good with birthdays. But when you go through all these different classes, I don't know how many classes you had in a day in school or if you're still going to school, but I think by high school I had 7. And if you are doing lackluster in 7 different topics, you pick yourself up and take yourself into 7 different rooms with 7 different teachers. Sometimes you have the same teachers, but 7 different teachers teaching you in 7 different ways, 7 different topics, and you're not doing great in any of them. It is easy, so easy, to convince yourself that you just don't have it together and you have no skills. You are not talented. You couldn't put anything together if it was just on you. You always need help. And I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm mainly calling my past self out, because this was exactly who I was. I was the person who was lucky to get a C, maybe even a D some years. Some years I was, bad. I was bad some years. But yeah, I mean, you just, after taking yourself to all these different classes and, seeing that some people excel in some of these classes and then you don't excel at a single one, that can be very painful. It can deter you. It can point you in a scary direction, because you'll tell yourself things that aren't true. Because I told myself things that weren't true. I told myself that I was no good at anything. I told myself that no teacher could teach me anything because my problem was my attention. And if you don't have attention, you really don't have anything. There is no learning, there is no absorbing, there is no listening if you don't have attention. So, I paid the consequences for not having attention. But something pretty interesting happened. After high school, when everything, on paper everything sped up because I got a job and I started working 5 days a week and I was working 40 hours a week, and then it came to like 50, 55 hours a week. But, in a really weird way, everything slowed down because I wasn't dragging myself to seven different topics all in one day, crammed into a single session of a day, and just letting myself feel ignorant all the time about all of these topics and convincing myself that I was no good at any of them. So when I got out into the real world and I had internet connection at home, which everybody does, but I'm trying to make a point here that you can learn anything online, which is exactly what I did. I learned a bunch of things online. And when I was 20, or right before I turned 20, I started finding these philosophical quotes from like Aristotle, from Socrates, from Plato, the old school ancient Greek philosophers. And those quotes that I read really resonated with me. One in particular, and this was after I started working out, so this just, and I had just became an assistant manager, so this quote really resonated with me. But it was Aristotle, and he said, excellence is a habit. It's a longer quote than that, but he's saying that excellence is something that is maintained and is grown, and you work for it. Excellence is repeating something, returning to something, which is what I did. So, and I was always interested in psychology as well. So I took these quotes from Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, and I just went crazy because it felt like someone was speaking my language for the first time. I didn't have a philosophy class in high school. We didn't have a psychology course. We didn't have any of that. So when I, was flunking economics and getting a D- in geometry and, just doing terrible in geography, I couldn't even point out basic countries on a map to you in high school. which once again just really tanked my confidence as a learner, someone with no attention span. Once these quotes started resonating with me, and I said, wait a minute, the world is a lot bigger than I thought it was. What are these quotes? And that's not to say none of the classes that I went to growing up didn't have, one of those generic philosophical quotes hanging up. But those were always believe in yourself. And it's wow, thanks for the insight. Okay, I still can't pay attention. I don't know what you want from me. But then I read something from Socrates that said, I read something from Socrates the one thing that I know is that I know nothing. Something along those lines. And that just really spoke to me. That was like speaking my language. My attention clicked right there. The gears started turning. I said, okay, what is this? What am I reading? And then I realized it's a whole category. It's philosophy. I said, okay, I've heard the word philosophy, but I never knew quite what it was. So I just went crazy. And, I had to start from ground zero because I wasn't really trying in high school. So when it came to paying attention to, because I would watch videos on Aristotle's ideas, and he wrote a whole book about logic, and Plato and his idea of forms, the world of forms, and the shadow in the cave, I think is what it's called. But either way, I could hardly pay attention to these videos. These new topics that I was interested in of philosophy that I felt like were getting the gears turning in my head, I could hardly pay attention to them still, because I was coming from that high school version of me that thought I couldn't pay attention and thought I needed a teacher. How on earth could I listen to some dude just explain something online if a teacher right there that I can raise my hand and ask questions to couldn't help me? So I just thought I was a lost cause. But the magic was that my curiosity fueled the engine. Even though I only retained and understood maybe 10% of the videos that I watched about philosophy, the sheer curiosity in me for the topic and my persistence for wanting to learn it was all that I needed to keep going. I kept returning to the videos. I kept finding new philosophers. I found Nietzsche, I found Schopenhauer, I found Franz Kafka. He's not as much a philosopher, but his quotes are, pithy, very impactful. And then this branched into psychology for me. I said, okay, I've always been interested in psychology, but once again, I never really looked into it because I thought it was just too much for me. I didn't know what the word neurological meant, so how on earth could I ever understand psychology? That's the point that your mind can get to. If there are enough big words involved in something and you just completely disconnect with what someone is saying, you think that's point blank it. You think, that's intellectual suicide. You just give up. You're like, okay, well, he said 5 words in a row that I don't even know what he means. So I can't connect how they work together, let alone how they work separately. And if I look up the definition, even that is too intricate for me to put together. I'm just going to give up. And that's how I used to think. But I took this curiosity and this persistence with philosophy, and I kept returning and kept returning and kept watching and kept applying myself even when it didn't make sense to me. And I gathered the small, tiny bits of information that I could keep together. And that was, okay, Socrates was the first major philosopher. He made it start, really. He got the wheels turning for that. He died because he was sentenced to death for he was messing with the youth and the people through asking too many questions. He would ask questions about God, and when people gave him answers, he would just say, why? Or how do you know that? And then he would ask them so many times where it got to the ground of their thinking, and all of them had to just be like, well, I don't know. And the ego is a powerful thing. The ego loves to have answers. The ego loves to think it has everything all together, especially people in power, their egos. They need everyone to believe that they know what's going on. So when some dude's going around talking to everybody, saying, well, how do you know that this is how this works? And he could have been putting the political powers in question. He'd be like, well, who told you that this is how this works? He's like, well, the president did, or the king did. And he's like, how do you know that the king is reliable? He was passed down from, whatever, his dad, and he's only 25 years old. You're much older than him. How do you know that he doesn't even know what he's talking about? And then they put their hand to their chin and they start thinking. They're like, I don't know. And obviously this made the political power angry. And then when he was questioning them about God and it led them to saying, I don't know, that rocked a lot of people's faith. That made them angry. They don't want to ask too many questions. They just want to have, shallow answers that they think are correct. They don't care. So when this dude's forcing them to, reckon with themselves and ask how they got to that level of thinking, questioning their self-awareness, he made the people so angry that they sentenced him to death by drinking hemlock, which is poison. And apparently he took it like a man. Like he was like, all right, well, I'm going to stick by my philosophy and all these questions because truly you guys don't I'm pretty sure he literally the point that he was making in drinking the hemlock was that we don't know if death is a bad thing. Like he was making this huge philosophical point. He was like, we don't know. Do you know what happens after death? Oh, you don't? Well, then how do you know it's bad? Yeah, I'll drink this hemlock. If I'm asking questions and that's what I got to do, then all right. Okay. That's enough of my, love of philosophy and psychology. I'm trying to make a humongous point here that I was the bottom of my grade, 1.4 GPA, barely graduated, thought that I couldn't learn a new subject to save my life, but then I found something that I didn't know about, philosophy in this case, and it felt like it was speaking a different language that I could understand. And maybe that's not philosophy for you. It could be anything. You could be a teacher. Maybe you are secretly a teacher. Maybe you can explain things very well to people, but you never actually uncovered it in yourself because everybody told you that you're not this and you're not that. Don't listen to the world. Definitely take constructive criticism and understand that there are honest critics in the world and they're just trying to help. There are people out there like that. But a lot of people are haters. A lot of people just want to feel better in the moment. So they will put others down just to propel themselves up for that singular moment. And and once again, this goes into ego. They think that this is making them a more, spectacular person. They don't actually believe that down deep. Underneath everything, they understand it's very shallow. But on the surface, it looks like they won. If they can speak over you and call you stupid and make you shut up, that makes them feel like they won. They feel powerful in that moment. But you don't have to believe this. You don't have to buy this. You don't have to let some topic in school let you think that you're stupid. You don't have to let the school system and how it's ran make you think that that's how everybody is determined as a genius or not, because it's not. There are 100 different ways of learning. There are a million different ways of uncovering who you are. If you want just how I did it, and honestly, I think this is a very effective way, you don't even have to write it down. Something absolutely beautiful about the human mind is that you can ask yourself a question and you can get an answer. And when I found this out, and it seems obvious at first, but I started writing, so it became a more intricate process, and it was very exciting and mind-boggling, because you ask yourself something, and it's like, do I like my current situation? And my answer was, it's okay. Okay, why is it okay? It's like, okay, pros and cons. What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? Okay, well, I like the people that I work with, and I like that I'm building towards something, but I don't like that I can hardly pay attention, and I don't like that I can't really absorb the information, and I don't like that I don't know what words they're saying. And through questioning yourself, through finding these answers, You are given revelation. You are given a piece of your mind that you can work with, because you can find your strengths and weaknesses through doing this. And when I knew that I wanted to learn the words that people used, and I wanted to be able to absorb information and retain attention, the habits that started clicking for me, because you are a conscious being, but you're also an unconscious being. And what I mean by that is, once your mind is aware that you don't like that you can't pay attention, and you don't like that you don't understand some words that people are saying, as long as you're doing the work and you're still trying, you begin forming habits automatically, sort of on autopilot. And the way that I did that, the way that I sharpened my attention, was I kept returning to the topics. I kept watching the lectures. I watched the whole thing, or if it was an hour, I watched, a half hour of it, 20 minutes of it. I just sat there and listened. And even if only 1% of it resonated, even if only half of the statements were I could put together in a congruent way, I still sat with it. And the other habit that I began to develop was I started looking into the dictionary. I started regularly opening the dictionary. And there was a lot of times where I could not put the words together. I was like, okay, this definition, I don't even understand how to put this definition together. Like epistemological. Look up the word epistemological and look at the definition of it. It seems pretty straightforward, and in a way it is. It's a philosophical term. I think it's the process of how we have concrete knowledge. I think that's just like a vague, condensed version of the word. But I would wrestle with words like these when I was looking into philosophy. But I continuously returned to the dictionary. Now, I didn't look up every single word every time I didn't know a word. I would have just scared myself away from every topic if I would have done that, because I would never have watched the videos. I would have just been, sulking and bitter about all the words I didn't know that were out there. But I developed the habit of returning to the dictionary. I developed the habit of returning to these lectures and these informational videos, which returns us back to Aristotle, where excellence is a habit. Now, let's get into the gifts. You have a gift, or gifts. You have a unique perspective. You have a way of looking at the world that no one else on the planet has exactly like you. And you are infinitely potential, or you have infinite potential. Once again, the person who works and practices will always beat the person with talent who doesn't. If you apply yourself, if you don't allow school to tell you how valuable, intelligent, or capable you are, if you truly look into new things and you're actually trying to uncover who and what you are and what your gifts are, things will begin to come to you. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen on day one. I'm not saying that it's going to even happen in the first couple of years. I wrote and watched videos for years before, the big major dots started to connect. Like being able to keep up with every word all of the time, which I still cannot do, because a lot of these topics that I look into, they're pretty complex. I can't keep up with all that all the time, but I can keep up with 90% more than I was able to when I first began. So don't sell yourself short. Don't let yourself believe that you're not talented. Don't let yourself believe that there is nothing in this world for you to be good or great or masterful at, because it's not true. The work is important. It's not always going to be exciting, but there is excitement. There is curiosity. There is a sense of wonder. There is so much to your being that you can uncover if you are looking for it. if you are finding new topics, if nothing resonates with you, keep looking. Don't give up. Continue in the mines. For the perfect analogy for the types of videos that I've been making, stay in the mines. You can find diamond. You can find gold. But if you convince yourself that your attention is bankrupt and you refuse to enter the cave and go looking and refuse to uncover who you are as an individual, you'll never find anything. You will stay in that same confusing, minimalistic, pessimistic frame of mind that ultimately will destroy you, and you'll wonder what went wrong, and you'll wonder, when the years go by, you'll look back on your life wondering what could have happened if you would have taken a shot. And taking a shot can be much smaller than the way that people use that term. A lot of the time when people think taking a shot, they think asking the girl out, which is definitely a great example, or asking for a raise, or having that difficult conversation, or confronting somebody, or it's always this high nerve, high stakes moment. And it doesn't have to be, at least not at first. It can be a very quiet, mundane moment to take a shot. Me watching those lectures and videos in the past was me taking a shot. Me refusing to be knocked down by my attention span and returning regardless was me taking a shot. That is you taking your shot. When you don't give up, when you keep showing back up, when you know that there is something to find, you have a gift, you have something. And once again, it doesn't even have to be topics. It could be a sport. It could be fishing. It could be making friendships. It could be giving advice. Maybe you're fantastic at giving advice. Maybe you have a visionary mindset. Maybe you're very organized. Maybe you're a great planner. Maybe you could make a fantastic schedule for a whole team and you don't even know it because you've never been given the opportunity. This is the importance. This is the importance of taking the shot. Get jobs. Try hard things. Do things outside of your comfort zone. Discover who you are. Find your gifts. Discover your gifts. You have talent. You have capability. You are unique. There is no one else like you. There never has been. There never will be again. Do you really want to let that sit? Do you really not want to use the one chance you have? I don't know what lot you were given. I don't know how unfair life was to you. I really don't. But you deserve this. For yourself, for the world. You can solve problems for people. Everybody has problems. There are problems that not everyone can solve. And everyone can't solve their own problems. I cannot solve my own problems. I need people to help me. Maybe you're exactly what I need. Maybe you're exactly what so many people need. But the only way that you're going to know is if you're looking for it. And if you keep in mind, even when you're knocked down, even when you feel like this is it, you weren't chosen. You can't pay attention. This isn't for you. Nothing's for you. That is not real. Your mind and maybe society and the people around you are knocking you down and keeping you from finding or discovering your gifts. That's today's word. Believe in yourself. Uncover yourself. Keep trying. There are problems that only you are meant to solve. There is a calling on your life, a purpose. Thanks for watching.